Hi everyone, welcome to this new drawing tutorial. In this video, I will be guiding you through my whole drawing process of painting this elephant ear plant. We will start from step 1, which is sketching, and then go to step 2, laying down the base colors, then step 3, which is adding shading, you can also say adding texture, and then the final step, some final touches. But if you say the step 1 and step 2, that already know how to do it, you only want to learn how to add texture and how to do some final touches to your illustration, then you can go to get the downloadable file via the link in the video description. In that file, I've already laid out all the flat colors for you. All you need to do is follow along from step 3 and step 4 to learn how to add texture and final touches. Alright, without further ado, let's dive in. So now what you see is, first of all, on the left side, my iPad screen, and I'm drawing in Procreate. And then you also see my hands, so you will see all the gestures that I'm using. And of course, I'm talking to the camera, so you also see my face. And what you can see now, that if you download the file that I provide, you open it in Procreate, you will see that you have a folder called reference and then another folder called base color. If you're only here to learn how to add texture and final touches, you can jump to this timestamp and follow along from there. But if you are really a beginner and you want to learn how to do sketches and what is laying down base color, then just ignore the base color group and create a new layer. Let's start together with sketching. I'm going to just pick a black color, and then the brush I will be using is under the sketching brushes. In this brush set, I will be using this favorite sketching brush. If you are a really beginner, what I recommend you to do is, let's just very roughly trace over the reference photo. For example, you want to move this layer on top of your reference photo layer to be able to draw on top of it. So maybe I'll just drag this whole group down. Then we can draw on top of the reference photo. So we see the very big shape is just a shape like that. That is the basic shape. And then you could cut out some smaller shape in this big general shape, like that. Once we have this general shape ready, we can just drag this, make it just a little bit bigger, and then change the opacity to around 10, a new layer. And then on top of this guideline, we could start to refine the rough sketch. But if you say, I've already have some experience in doing line art sketching, then the first rough sketching parts, I want you to not trace over the reference photo and try to just draw it aside of your reference image. But if you are really a beginner and you say, I spend way too long time to sketch like how the reference photo look like, then I would recommend you trying out this trick. Now, of course, I know that some people might say tracing over reference photo isn't really a drawing practice, or it's not proper drawing practice. But what I feel is that, especially for beginners, the most important thing is to enjoy the process of creating something nice. If you end up with an illustration that you like and you feel proud of it, that is a win. That feeling of accomplishments can give you just enough confidence to continue to draw. Okay, now let's go back to sketching. You see, I'm not like zooming in my canvas. I'm not drawing like this, right? I'm relatively having my canvas zoomed out so that I have sort of an overview of how my line art look like. Because now it's really not the time to focus on all the little details in your drawing. As long as the overall look of these peaks is nice, and it's okay. And then the pot. Alright, now we can turn off the rough sketch. From what we have now, I feel like the upper part of this line art is just a little bit too long. I want to make it a bit like shorter, so I want it to look a bit chubby to make it look cute. So what I'm gonna do is I will select the upper part of the plant, and then we go to this tool, and then you want to go to free form so that we can change the proportion. So I'm gonna just make it a bit shorter, a bit fatter. I want a more chubby plant. There we go. And then what I'm gonna do is another trick that I use a lot, which is liquefy in Procreate. So if there is a part that I think it needs to be stretched a little bit, I will do this liquefy step during my rough sketching phase, because liquefy makes all your sketches like pixelized. I don't know if that's the right word, but it makes it blurry. So when you're already having a detailed line art, I try not to use liquefy this tool because it makes my line art look less sharp. But when it's still in the rough sketching phase, then I like to play with liquefy. I think that looks cute. I'm gonna go with this, and then I'm gonna turn the opacity to around 10 again, and change to my multi-use pencil. This is a sketching brush that I mostly like to how do you say, to draw a more refined line art. All right, that is one leaf, and then the one in the back. Okay. You see in the reference photo, these two leaves, you could see that they kind of, the edge of one leaf is literally the other edge of the other leaf. And in illustration, I will avoid those kind of coincidence. I will make sure that I express which leaf is in the front. So if there is something like that in your reference photo, I tend to clarify which one is in the front, which one is in the back. Right. Okay. And then the other leaf here. Right. You could tell that I in general is not like zooming in on my canvas to draw, because I still like to have an overview of how the whole illustration is looking like. Now I don't need the rough sketch anymore. Okay, I think that's the final line art. What we're gonna do is underneath the line art, was first of all lower the opacity so that when we do coloring, we could see if the shape of our color block is clear enough. So underneath all the sketching layers, we create a new layer for coloring, and I'm going to choose a new brush in my flat color brushes, this brush set, which is the watercolor felt pen. And then just select the color from the reference photo. We're gonna first paint this leaf, okay? So what we're gonna do is make the brush size relatively smaller and lay down that base color that we selected. The reason why we first want to use a smaller brush size to first draw sort of the silhouette, or you can also say the outline of this color shape, is because if the edge is not sharp, your illustration is not gonna look clean. It's not gonna look accomplished. So you want to make sure the edge of every color block is relatively sharp and clear. And the reason why I like to use this brush is that it has like some texture in it. Because there is another way to lay down your base color, which is just drag the color into this area. But what you can see is that if you drag the color in, it's very solid and it doesn't have any texture in it. And I just personally don't like it. I like to use a brush that has somehow a little bit of texture to fill in the color. And once we have the edge finished, we can enlarge our brush to somehow make this process a bit faster, because otherwise it's gonna take forever. So I'm gonna just quickly lay down the color, right? And then we could make the brush a bit smaller to fill in all the gaps. It can be quite a boring step, because it's just you don't have to really use your brain. It's just based on, I mean, like according to your sketch, lay down the colors. So I sometimes like to watch some videos, you know, watching some stuff on YouTube, or I could also be watching a TV series. But it's also a relaxing process sometimes. I would turn off my refined sketch to see if the color block is especially the edges is clear enough or not. See? So once I'm happy with how this color block is looking like, then I will continue. So we could, what I am doing now is I am creating a new layer underneath the leaf that we already drew, because there are a lot of leaves that are all behind this big one. So you want to make sure that the leaf in the back are drawn in the layers that at the bottom. Okay, so for example, the easiest way is when doing this laying down base colors step, you start by laying down colors that are sitting in the back in this illustration. So for example, I would actually draw this little leaf in the back first. So what we could do is, oh, actually we forgot to paint that area, but that's fine. It's just roughly here, so I'm gonna just add that in. And then there's this leaf that is in front of it, so on this layer. You see, you want, the reason why I want you to first finish up laying down the colors for the leaf in the back is because once we draw a new layer that is sitting in the front, then the color will actually cover those that is on the layers beneath it. You see? Then actually this layer is covering the color that is in the layer beneath it. You see? So that is quite an important thing to pay attention to when doing this step 2. There is an accident, one brush stroke here. I'm gonna just quickly erase that. And then leaf here. The reason why I'm drawing these two leaves on the same layer is that because they are not close to each other, so it won't really affect step 3. You will understand why I do that once we start to add texture. Just remember, as long as two elements are not sitting like close to each other, then you could draw them on the same layer. But if you're unsure, just draw them on different layer. That is just the easiest way. As long as your iPad can handle it, because you can see that I think in Canvas you could see Canvas information. You will be able to see layers. So there is a maximum layer that you can use for a file that you create in Procreate. In Adobe Photoshop, there is no limit, which is why I just like to create new layers without thinking too much. But in Procreate, then I tend to try to not use too many layers because there is a maximum layer that I can use. Alright, make it just a little bit bigger, because otherwise if you all the time using small brushes to lay down the colors, it's really gonna take you forever. I'm gonna make it small again because we are reaching the edges. All right. And then maybe this leaf on that layer, I'm gonna draw this leaf again because they are quite far away from each other. Okay. I'm gonna turn off my line art to see if the shape is looking okay. I think that's fine. All right. Okay. And then there is one leaf that is in the back, this one. I think I'm gonna just create a new layer also. Wait. All right. Then behind all the leaf, a new layer. You can use the same brush or you could also change to 6B pencil or some other more solid brushes to lay down the color here. All right. And then the color for the pot. You see, if you're using the 6B pencil brush to lay down the color, then actually your color block is gonna look more solid. I feel like when I'm like sharing my screen, the color doesn't really look exactly the same like what I see on my iPad. But if you download the course material, the downloadable file, you will be able to see which color I'm using. So I feel like on the screen it looks somehow different. A new layer, don't forget to create new layer. It's very important for the next step when we want to add texture to every single color block. All right. Then we have all these layers. They are actually all for our base colors. We could group them together, and then I'm gonna name these group just base colors. Maybe also group these as just our sketch. All right. Now let's go into step 3, which is adding texture. So the first step you want to do is let's alpha log all the base color layers. So alpha log, alpha log, alpha log, alpha log. Okay. And then we could turn off the sketch. Before we carry on though, once I turn off the sketch, I feel like that this area is looking a little bit strange. Here is just a little bit strange. What I'm gonna try to make it less strange is I'm gonna add another just one stroke. I think that's just gonna make it look a little bit better. Otherwise it was too empty, like it was not making sense to me. I think now it's better. Okay, so we alpha log it. And then let's go to add texture. So what I like to do is I always like to first add texture to a bigger area in the illustration. So what means here is that I will first add texture to the biggest leaf in this illustration, which is the one in the front. And then I will maybe do the texturing for this leaf here because it's second largest, and then maybe the pot. I want to first accomplish as much as possible in this illustration. That's why I tend to first add texture to the biggest area. So let's first add texture to this leaf. The brush I'm using is, we are going to the texture brushes, these brush set. There is this brush that is free in Procreate, you can find it, but I don't know from where, but I think you can just search where you can find it. It's free in Procreate. I'm gonna first demonstrate how to add texture with this free brush. So what you're gonna do is, I want you to go to this reference photo, and then we want to select a color here. I'm selecting a color that is lighter than the base color. So we first add this relatively lighter color in. You see, once this layer is alpha locked, we won't be able to paint outside of the base color. And then you want to make sure that your brush is not too big and also not too small, because you want to keep that kind of brush texture in it. And I'm gonna select again. You see there is a little like purplish color that I already made in my final illustration that we want to add that purplish color in. See, and then we select the transition area to make sure that all those colors are like very smoothly blend in with each other. Here is again a more like yellowish, bluish kind of type, but the opacity I made it bigger. I don't like when it's too low. I think that was, the texture was not nice when the opacity was too low. Then from the very base color, now the color starts to have some variation in it, right? And then we could go to this leaf, this one, and then we could select, there is a purplish color, we want to add that in. See, I'm selecting the color that is in the transition area. See, now the color in one leaf starts to look like colorful. It starts to have a lot of color. And then we're gonna draw the pot. There is a very bright yellow color and we want to add that color in. And a pinkish color, we add that in as well. I think there is also a darker tone. We could add that. Okay. All right. Maybe the bright color is a bit too much. So I'm just, okay, I think now that looks good. And then let's draw the leaf that is on the left. Choose the bright color. Oh, we want to select that layer. So, okay, that layer. By the way, my gesture control is if I click and hold, it goes to, automatically it helped me to select, you see, if there's a couple a layer that could choose, then it will show you, it will ask you which layer you want to jump to. But if you click long and then there's only one layer to select in this area, then it automatically go to that layer. So if you want to change that, you have to, I think, go to preference, preference, and then gesture control, and then we go to layer select. Here I have touch and hold selected. This means if I want to select a layer, I just have to touch and hold my screen. And then I think I also changed my color picker. The eyedropper tool is Apple Pencil double tap. So if I double tap on the screen, then you want to make sure that you have the pencil tool selected, and then you double tap, then the selection tool, the color selection tool comes up. Okay, I think I forgot to mention that. So I am now continue to add texture. Based on how your basic shape, the size of your basic shape, you want to change the size of your texture brushes, okay? All right, I think that could be it. And then this area, there is a very yellowish color here at the bottom. And then a very quite like blue color. See, okay. If it's too much, I feel like now it's too much, then I select the transition color and then blend it in. Okay. It's not so complicated. It's actually quite easy. Select that color and then go to this layer, and then we add that color in. You see, I actually select use color selection tool a lot, because if you want the two colors to blend smoothly, you will have to select the color in the transition area and then help the two colors to blend together. All right, and then I think what's left is just this layer that we haven't done color variation. But there's not that much area to do, so it's just quickly. Okay. And then for this layer also quickly, a little bit of color difference. Okay. That is adding texture. Now our illustration has some texture. What we're gonna do as the final step is gonna be adding some final touches. So we're gonna turn on the sketch layer, and then I would probably put the opacity to even lower, at least 10%, at the lowest 10%, but maybe even lower. And then we want to, on top of all the base colors, add a new layer. And then we could use again the favorite sketching brush, or you could also use watercolor fill pen. We just go select the bright color and then adding some final touches to it. This watercolor fill pen, it has a feature that if you're applying very low pressure, that the color is a lot lighter. So you want to, whenever you are going to the edges, you want to make sure that you apply less pressure to the brush. I don't like these parts like that look too even. I'm gonna change it. All right, and then another thing what we're gonna do is I actually have the setting that the light is coming from, maybe from let's see, I think I have the setting of the light is coming from the top left, which is why the leaf, for example, how do I explain? So for example, the light is coming from top left, so the area that is facing downward won't receive the light and it will appear darker, and the area where the light hit will appear brighter. So what I did here, you can see on the edges that is facing upwards, I added a little touch of bright color, and an area where it's facing downward, then I add some darker tones to it. So this is what we're gonna do. Let's select a bright color and then add this bright color in. You see where I'm adding it is actually where the leaf is facing upwards, and then we go select, block again. Sorry, I think my screen was lagging. Now it should be okay. So let's continue. So we're adding some dark color to the area that is facing downward, right? Okay. Also here, this part is also facing downward. And then let's add the final touches to this leaf. We are again using a brighter color to indicate how the texture of the leaf itself look like. And then again, pay attention to how much pressure that you are using to apply to from your Apple Pencil to your iPad screen. Sorry. And then you might say, this area, this part is actually facing upwards. Why am I adding a darker color? It's because actually what I think is that the light will be actually covered by the leaf that is on top of this leaf. If that makes sense. Because it's like covered, you know, there's one leaf here, one leaf there, and there's one like hiding behind it. So I don't think that it will receive light. So I'm adding a dark color to it. Right, and then here, It's actually just adding some color variation to your illustration, so it looks more like colorful. Also, the dynamic looks better because your eyes will look at, oh, bright color, darker color, bright, dark, bright, dark. Then it looks just more accomplished. All right, that's okay. Then we move on. Not necessary that it's, well, what happened? It's not necessary that you adding dark color per se. You could also just use a dark color. All right. Actually, these leaf in the back, this part, we actually didn't add texture, but it doesn't really matter because this only takes up like a very small part of the illustration, so it's not the focus. All right, and we can also add some just dark tone to here and there. All right, that's pretty much it. We could now turn off the sketch. And there we have the final illustration. So that is a process breakdown of how I created these kind of book illustration style drawing. So I hope my drawing process will inspire you, and the most important thing is that you pick up your pencil and start drawing. Thank you for hanging out with me today. So I will see you in the next video tutorial. Bye!